To our second information session on the latest call, Skills Guarantee for Workers in Transition. And we are very pleased to have you with us today. So, as Loretta mentioned, my name is Renata Ribinskaitė, and I represent the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. I will be moderating today's session and guiding you through the agenda. But before we begin, I'd like briefly outline the structure of today's meeting. We will first introduce the lump sum funding model, then move on to practical tips and common mistakes in applications, followed by a short coffee break. And after the break, we will conclude with a session dedicated to the most frequently asked questions. Also, I would like to encourage you to post your questions in the chat anytime because we have dedicated team members to answer them. Several questions will be addressed after each presentation during question answer segments. Any remaining questions will be answered after this event in a written question answer format. So now I would like to give a floor to Eglė Kryžinauskaitė, Project Coordinator from the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. So Eglė, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Renata. Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry, my voice might be a bit low today. I'm feeling a bit ill. I hope everyone is healthy, though. And I'll try in the next 10 to 15 minutes tell you more about the model of lump sum funding that is used in this call. And I think we can just jump right into it. So we can start, yes. This model marks a relatively new approach to social innovation projects because the focus is shifted from detailed cost reporting to actually achieved results. There are several peculiarities about this model, so that's why we decided to give you a short presentation today. So basically, the project is awarded a fixed total amount of funds based on the approved budget proposal. So at the moment, if you are preparing the applications, you are most likely thinking how much money we are supposed to ask and working with the detailed budget table that is an integral part of your application. So unlike traditional funding models, the focus here is not on reimbursing individual costs, but on achieving agreed results. Payments are released only after specific activities and deliverables of your projects are completed and validated by the granting authority. So basically, this means that funding is linked directly to performance and outcomes rather than detailed budget and expense reporting. So we don't want to see invoices, pay slips, timesheets. We want to see actual results of your work. There are some key principles that you might want to keep in mind. This includes a fixed budget agreed in advance. So we pre-agree the budget before you start your project. The payments are based on the results achieved. And it actually simplifies the whole reporting process because we don't want to burden you with all the administrative tasks, and we want to encourage efficiency and accountability from project operator side. Next slide, please. So how the lump sum is established. The responsibility for proposing the project budget lies with you, with project applicants. As part of the application, you estimate the total costs needed to deliver the planned activities and expected results. Once you submit the application, we, the granting authority, review both the quality of the application and of the proposed budget. Based then on this assessment, we will determine, together with experts, the final lump sum amount. This agreed amount then will be fixed in the grant agreement. So basically, this all process happens through making two major steps. The first step is project proposal, where you, the applicants, present a realistic and well-justified budget. And the second step is budget assessment, during which the granting authority evaluates the budget consistency, feasibility, and alignment with the project objectives before approving the final lump sum. I will now talk more deeply in each step, so we can move already to the first step. In next slide is the establishing the lump sum budget, the estimation and proposal that you are now doing while writing your project applications. At this stage, we expect you to provide cost estimates for each cost category. All these costs need to be broken down by work package and beneficiary. So we want to ensure transparency and clarity how your all budget is structured. It's really important that these estimates reflect the approximate actual costs. We work on averages because lump sum is basically an average of what you guess your project will cost. Therefore, we expect that these estimates are reasonable, proportionate, essential for carrying out the proposed activities. Non-essential costs may affect the final assessments. Therefore, please be as realistic as possible and use justified sources of information to base your calculations on. Then the granting authority will use these costs. We will use these costs to calculate and determine the lump sum amount for each work package and each beneficiary. Work packages, and my colleagues will talk about it later, must represent concrete blocks of work. These individual tasks, percentage of progress, simple time periods do not qualify as a work package. Work package need to be long duration, project management year one, communication year one, employment of people, skills, reskilling processes. So please do not break work packages artificially, but do think through how you want to separate all work between the years. And of course, if you read, and I suppose you read call conditions quite carefully, the project must include at least 5 mandatory work packages according to the call conditions. Let's move to the second step of this process, of the budget assessment. At this stage, expert evaluators that we work with assess the project proposals based on established criteria. Those are also written in call conditions. Those are relevance, quality, expected impact, and also cost efficiency. Experts evaluate and verify whether the proposed resources and lump sum allocations are actually appropriate and sufficient to carry out the planned activities. So do not doubt. We work with the experts in the field and people who are actually able to judge whether the costs you are proposing are actually needed. They check that the budget aligns with the scope of work and delivers value for money. If we see that costs appear to be overestimated or are not adequately justified, experts may suggest adjustments to the proposed budget, and those mostly are budget cuts, as you might understand. So once this assessment is completed, an adjustment, if the application goes and is approved and suggested for funding, the lump sums will be fixed in the grant agreement. Let's look at the next slide. How the lump sums, so this is basically the whole process overview. So you will give us a lump sum proposal in the application, then we evaluate during the evaluation stage. Then when we sign the grant agreement during the months of administration, we manage the lump sums. We make sure that you reach the work that you promised to reach. And when the work package is accepted, the lump sum is paid. You can check that slide later on your own. So let's just move further, not to be stuck here. The most interesting question is how the lump sum is made. So payments are directly linked to the project milestones. Those are work packages and deliverables. And once you complete the activities and deliverables, we pay the lump sums instead of reimbursing the actual costs. So the funding is result-oriented. The payment process happens in 3 stages. First, there is the pre-financing at the start of the project. So the 50% of the lump sum of the whole grant granted to the project is released to you and help to launch the project and cover initial activities. Second, pre-financing after the reporting period after 12 months, when you submit the first periodic report, an additional 30% may be released, given that the whole work achieved in the first reporting period is done. I will talk about that in the next slide. And then the last final payment of 20% is made at the end of the project when all the deliverables have been successfully completed. And if not, there's calculation on the percentage of work that you completed. So this structured approach ensures that the funds are distributed fairly while keeping the focus on achieving tangible results rather than we track the actual expenses that you encountered. Let's move to the next slide. This is just for you to understand a little slide that the work packages are directly linked to the lump sum funding. So it's established per project and per work package and per beneficiary. Therefore, the key moment for you now working on your applications should be structuring the work packages. There should be a reasonable amount of activities and deliverables. If you have 100 deliverables and you don't reach some, you will not receive the lump sum funding. And please do consider splitting work packages with the longer duration in line with the periodic reports. And this will be quite clear in my next slide when I tell you more about the essence of 70% rule, as we call it. Let's move to the next slide. Yes, so a work package completed, what does it mean? It means that all activities planned under that work packages and all deliverables associated with that work package are reached. These must be declared in the periodic reports, and lump sum paid will be paid after you submit the periodic report. It's very important to understand that partial completed work packages cannot be declared in that way during the whole period. They can only be declared partially completed at the very end of the project. In this case of skills guarantee, after 24 months, for example. So if you have a work package that runs from month 1 to month 14, you will not be able to close it in the first reporting period. You can only close it then after 24 months. Let's move to the next slide. Practical example. So let's say the grant is of 2 million euros and there are 5 work packages. You can see that the first reporting period will end after 12 months and then the second reporting period will end after 24 months. It's very important that you calculate well how much money will be spent in the first reporting period, because the textbook scenario, as we say, you will receive at the beginning. If the total lump sum is 2 million euros, you will receive 1 million at the start of your project. After first year, you will complete the activities that you planned, and then if you use 70% of that first 50%, you will be released the full second pre-financing, which would be 600,000 here. And then at the very end, the remaining 400,000 would be paid. I know it's a little bit tricky, so just spend some time with the slides, try to understand the logic. And we really encourage that because we see that it's quite a big burden for project applicants to understand this logic. And the last slide, please, I think before we close. So what I want, if there's one thing that I want you to take out of my presentation is this 70% rule, meaning that first you receive 50% of the grant and you must aim to spend 70% of that first million euros, so to say. But let's say you only spend 300,000, then 400 will be deducted from your next payment. Once again, it takes some time to understand, but there's one simple trick and hint to crack this logic, is that you need to plan the major activities and the largest costs within the first period of your project. Actually, it means that you need to spend more than 1/3 of the grant in the first year. Those are big projects. This is not very long time. So we really ask you to think through while structuring your budget. Next slide, please. And I think I will be shortly done. Yes, we thought to give you some main takeaways, given that there's a lot of information coming your way. So from my part, from lump sum funding, yes, please do design your projects in a way that the heavy spending is done in the year 1, meaning approximately 35% of the grant. You should plan your activities by project year, not only by topic or theme. So again, project management, year 1, work package. Project management, year 2, another work package. This will help you to manage your cash flow more easy. And then, of course, justify all costs clearly and consistently across the application. Write comments everywhere in the detailed budget table. One line of spending, one line of comments. This helps the experts to evaluate your work, and this will help us all to go through the process. So yes, think strategically, structure by year, and justify everything. These are my main advices to you, but if you have questions, do not hesitate to contact us. I think in the next slide we have our email address. You can find everything on our webpage. And I thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to either answer now or later by email.
Thank you, Agla, for your quite clear and informative presentation. It seems like very easy to construct the application form, but I know from experience that it's quite hard. So now we have a few minutes for 1-2 questions related to lump sum funding models, because we didn't receive any question in the chat box. So maybe someone wants to raise a hand and we can answer. If not, so take your time, write your questions later in the chat box. If not, we can move on to our next presenter. And I will invite Kristina Šatkuvienė, project coordinator from the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. She will present our next tips and comments about application form, annexes, and other stuff. So, Kristina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Renata. Good morning, everyone. I'm also feeling slightly under the weather today, so my apologies in advance. So in my presentation, I'm going to share some practical tips to help you prepare a strong application. I will talk about some common mistakes we often see and how you can avoid them. And I will also share some concrete examples of what we, as the granting authority, see as good practice, and also what can weaken an application. Next slide, please. So let me briefly explain what I will cover today. So first, I will say a few words about the overall project structure. Then I will explain what we expect to see in the description of your project activities and deliverables. After that, I'll talk about how to present your project team. I will also briefly go over the annexes and supporting documents that you must submit with your application. And finally, I will highlight a couple of important points to keep in mind when completing the application form. So let's start with the project structure. Next slide, please. Further. Next. So as you already know, projects must be structured in work packages. So a common question is, how many work packages should there be in a project? Well, there's no fixed number, and it really depends on the scope and nature of your project. That said, every project must include at least 5 mandatory work packages covering the following activities. So project coordination and management, dissemination and communication, mapping, outreach and matching, upskilling, reskilling, and employment support. The number of work packages is not limited, so which means that there's no maximum number. But in principle, you should plan the number of your packages to match the size and complexity of the project. And the number should be manageable within the planned time and resources. And each work package should include clear activities and deliverables. And we strongly recommend grouping similar activities together instead of creating a separate work package for every single activity. Also, you don't need a separate deliverable for every activity. This means that one deliverable can cover several related activities. Let's move to the next slide. So, in the first part of this session, my colleague already explained quite in detail how the lump sum funding model works and how it can affect project design. So the key point to remember is this. So during the project implementation, lump sum payments are made only when relevant work packages are fully completed. And because of this, for work packages with a long duration, you may want to consider splitting them in line with the reporting periods. So, for example, if your project runs for 24 months, instead of having one management work package for the full duration, you could split it in two, each covering 12 months. So when you submit your first periodic report, you can already declare the first management work package as completed. But as already Egle mentioned, be careful because splitting work packages should not be artificial. So if activities are continuous and you cannot clearly separate them, you should not split the work package. So for example, a work package called, let's say in our call, development of a job-to-job transition model is difficult to divide. So the reason is simple. The model either is developed or not. So in such cases, splitting the work package may be hard to justify unless you have a very clear and strong explanation. Next slide, please. Now a few words on how to describe your activities and deliverables. So very often these descriptions are too short. And what we need is enough detail to understand whether the requested amount is reasonable, how project progress can be monitored, and how we can check that the work has been completed. So we recommend using both quantitative and qualitative indicators. And these are simple elements that show the scope of your activities. So for example, if you plan training activities, say how many training sessions you will organize or how many participants you expect. At the same time, we do not expect a very detailed step-by-step plan. It's enough to describe the main elements so that the scope of the activities is clear and the budget and timeline make sense. Let's move to the next slide. So when you define your qualitative and quantitative indicators, ask yourself a few simple questions. For example, is it realistic to achieve what I have planned? Are the estimated costs in line with the planned activities? Have I identified possible risks? So overall, make sure that your indicators are reasonable and achievable. So it is important to remind here that if the planned indicators are not met, the work package may be considered only partially completed or in some cases even fully rejected. So let's look at a simple example of a weak and a strong description. Let's move to the next slide. So a weak example would be something like regular coordination meetings. This type of description leaves several points unclear. So for example, what does regular mean? Who will take part? Will the meetings be online or in person? This last point is especially important because it's directly linked to your budget. So a stronger example includes a bit more key information. So without going into too much detail, you can specify how often the meetings take place, what format they have, and who will participate. So for example, you can explain that some meetings will be online, others will be in person, and that at least two representatives from each partner will attend. If relevant, you should also mention travel. Next slide, please. Now let's focus on deliverables. So here, I want to stress that deliverables should be specific, measurable, verifiable, and relevant. So in short, for each deliverable, clearly explain what it is, how it can be measured, how it is linked to your project activities, and how you will show that it has been achieved. And keep in mind that we must be able to check and confirm that the deliverable has really been completed. So we recommend including supporting documents in your description. So for example, if a deliverable is a workshop or training, you can mention attendance list, presentations, reports, and so on. Next slide, please. So now let me give an example of a deliverable for the regular coordination meetings activity discussed just a couple of minutes earlier. So a suitable deliverable could be a coordination meetings report. In the description, you can say that it will be drafted after the last meeting, and it will include agendas, meeting minutes, and signed participant attendance lists. And these deliverables will be from all coordination meetings during the project. So this creates a clear and verifiable record of the activities. So this is a good example because it shows specific output, includes verifiable content, and brings everything together. So instead of making separate reports for each meeting, you can create one report covering all meetings, including the necessary supporting documents. So as in this example, they are highlighted in bold. So moving on to the next slide. So there are two mandatory activities which should be included in every project. The first activity is mutual learning events organized by the European Competence Center of Social Innovation. Participation in these mutual learning events is mandatory, but please note that related travel costs and subsistence costs must be included in the project's detailed budget table, as these costs will not be reimbursed separately by the granting authority. And the second mandatory activity is uploading key information to the Social Innovation Match database. This includes two parts. So in the organization profile, you will have to provide relevant information about your organization. And in the project profile, you will have to upload information about your project. So for example, what problem it addresses or what innovative approach it proposes. So just please know that you shouldn't create separate work packages for these activities. They should be included under the existing work packages. Next slide, please. Next. Now a few words about the project team. In the application, you need to describe your project team. And this section has two columns, name and function, and role or task. A common mistake in the applications is to put the person's position within an organization under function. So for example, head of research department. Instead, you should describe their role in the project, like researcher or data analyst. In the role column, briefly explain the specific responsibilities of that team member in the project. So for example, for a training specialist, indicate the key activities they will be involved in, such as developing training programs or delivering training and so on. Next slide, please. Just to add a small comment, under the role, you should show how each team member's expertise supports the implementation of the project activities. Of course, you can freely decide how to present this information. However, it is better to avoid long and detailed task descriptions. Instead, you should try indicate how each team member directly contributes to work packages, activities, or deliverables. In that case, the team description would be clearer, more structured, and easier to understand. Next slide. Next. And now let's talk about annexes and supporting documents. So Annex 1, detailed budget table, is one of the mandatory annexes of your application. It is the basis for establishing the lump sum amounts in the grant agreement. And once these amounts are fixed in the grant agreement, they cannot be changed, even if your actual costs are higher than originally planned. So here I want to note that when planning your budget, make sure that all budgeted costs are realistic, clearly justified, and aligned with your project's activities. Avoid overestimated costs. Clearly explain any unusual costs, because mistakes like these can negatively affect your score under the quality award criteria. So let's move to the next slide. So I just want to remind you that before filling in the detailed budget table, you should read carefully the instructions and cost eligibility conditions sheets in the detailed budget table to make sure that you know exactly what cost categories are eligible under this call, how to correctly fill in cost in the detailed budget table, or which costs should be justified in the comments sheets. So before including any cost in the detailed budget table, ensure that cost meets the eligibility criteria and provide a clear breakdown of costs in the comment section. And one more thing, if you are not sure how to fill in the detailed budget table, you can watch the step-by-step video tutorial. I have included a link to that video on this slide. Next slide. Another mandatory annex is Annex 5, list of previous projects. So this annex must be submitted to prove the operational capacity of the coordinator. In this annex, you must provide information about projects that meet all 5 operational capacity criteria. Now keep in mind that a single project must meet all the requirements. So read the requirements set out in the call conditions carefully to make sure that you include a qualifying project. And together with Annex 5, you must provide evidence proving that at least one project meets all the 5 operational capacity criteria. So, for example, funding decisions or grant agreements or other relevant documents, or a link to an official website of the funding instrument. Next slide, please. Now, together with Annex 5, Annex 8, Declaration of Professional Competences, needs to be submitted for the coordinator. This annex is used to certify that the coordinator's project team has the professional competences, appropriate qualifications, and a very good command of English necessary to carry out the tasks and activities foreseen in the application. But please note that if the coordinator is a public body, Annex 9, which is public legal entity form, should be submitted instead of Annex 5 and Annex 8. Next slide, please. Another mandatory annex is Annex 6, Declaration of Honor for Beneficiaries. So this annex must be submitted for the coordinator and co-applicants. It should be signed by the legal representative, and the legal document proving that the legal representative is entitled to sign it on behalf of the organization should be submitted together with it. Regarding the registration certificate, it should be submitted for applicants, co-applicants, and associated partners if the participant identification code is not available or the status is declared. And one final remark regarding Annex 4. It is not a mandatory annex, but we strongly recommend using it as a checklist to make sure that all required annexes and documents are submitted. Only the information submitted at the time of application will be taken into consideration during the assessment. So if you fail to submit any required document, your application will be considered inadmissible. That is, it will be rejected at the admissibility stage. Next slide. Next. Now I would like to say a few words about the amounts. In the detailed budget table, you will calculate the total project costs, which you can see in the estimated cost of the project sheet, and you will also calculate the grant amount. And the grant amount is indicated in the beneficiary work package overview. So, and make sure that in the application, you indicate the grant amount from this sheet in the budget table, because this amount reflects the costs after the 20% co-funding deduction. So I repeat once again that in the application form, you have to indicate only the grant amount, not the total costs of the project. Next slide, please. Oh, and a quick point on a technical but important detail. So you need to indicate the legal name of the entity in the application, and this name should be written exactly as it is officially registered in the original language. Don't translate the legal name into English if it is registered in another language. So if the original name uses a non-Latin script, for example, Greek, so provide a transliteration into the Latin alphabet, as shown on the slide. So this will help to avoid problems later in the process. So next slide, please. So I will also conclude my presentation with 3 key takeaways. So clearly describe your activities using both qualitative and quantitative elements and plan deliverables that are specific and measurable, because this helps us understand the scope of your project and assess its progress and completion. Provide a clear breakdown of costs in the comments sheet, if required in the instructions, clearly explaining what each unit includes and how the cost was calculated. And because only the use Annex 4 as a checklist, because only the information requested in the application and the documents listed in Annex 4 will be taken into consideration during the assessment. So if any required document is missing at submission, the application will be rejected at the admissibility stage. So that's all from me. Over to you, Renata.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina, for your presentation. We received some questions and we tried to answer them in chat box, but also during registration form for this event, we received a couple questions, and one question I'd like to address, as the answer to the other will be provided in the next part of the session. So the question is, could you please confirm whether additional ideas or components that are not explicitly outlined in the project call documentation are considered eligible for submission and evaluation, provided they align with the overall objectives of the call? In Ukraine, the problem is that women need skills in men's job. So I will give floor to Dovile to answer to this question.
Yes, thank you, Renata. Good morning, everyone. To answer this question, the answer is yes. Of course, additional ideas or components can be included, even if they are not explicitly listed in the call. So it's up to you to bring new ideas and suggest the new actions to improve the transition of workers, as long as these new additional ideas or components are aligned with objectives, the target group, expected results of the call, and in general respect the eligibility rules. So what matters the most is that the proposed actions contribute to piloting effective skill solutions for workers in transition in our target sector, so automotive sector and related supply chains, and help those workers to migrate and ensure their employment in the strategic and growing sectors.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dovile. I see one question in the chat, but we might answer it later. Maybe someone have another question and we can answer right away, because we still have a couple minutes before going to coffee break. If not, so maybe Dovile, you can answer also to this question. It's in the call, in the declaration of owner, it's mentioned that 20% co-financing can be covered by one of partner or all of them. but in detailed budget table, cuts made by all partners with exactly 20%. How to deal with that for the case of 20% overall project co-financing is not covered by all the partners?
Yes, in this case, as it's mentioned in the Declaration of Honor, we strongly advise you to have to sign a consortium agreement within your consortium. We don't have a template, we don't impose one, so you feel free to agree on the terms you want with your partners. And in this way, well, share this 20% of co-funding as you like. Unfortunately, we cannot adapt a detailed budget table case by case for each consortium. So it's one template of detailed budget table, and well, you need to work with it. But after within your consortium, it's up to you to share it and split it as you wish among partners.
Thank you, Dovile. Do we have more questions? Please raise a hand. Oh, yeah, we have one. Diara Eleonora.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's about the co-financing again. So we were thinking in our project to bring as co-financing, for example, wage or salary of associates that we send to a qualification programs that is developed within the project, that we consider the wage that we further pay during the training as one of the co-financing. But this is not possible to bring it into the detailed budget table. So the question would be how to deal with that. So when the 20% is not the cutoff of the costs that we have on the side of the personal costs we declare. So I hope you understand what I mean. So we have people not working and not financed by the project, but working in one company, spending time in trainings that we would like to bring it into our co-financing. And yeah, so how to declare that, and do we automatically need to cut off the 20% of the cost when we bring it on the other side?
And can I ask why you don't want them to include them in the project as partners? You say they will be working on the project, but you don't want to
No, they are not. The concept is they're not working in a project. So we have a project lead in a company, and we have associates that are affected by the transformation that we would like to consult and offer them a training or a skill guarantee program. But they are working for the company, they get a salary for that. And our thought was, if we offer them to participate to a training and the company is still paying their salary, that we include the salary that the company pay during the training into the co-financing. So they're not working for the project, they are, I would say, receiving project benefits. Yeah, but not included as people that we include as cost in the project.
I cannot say that that's possible, because all costs automatically should be included in detailed budget table, and it's estimated 100% for that cost, and then detailed budget cuts only 80%, it's grant amount, and 20% proposed it's your co-funding to the project. So all action, all activities should be included in detailed budget table.
So it means for us, the solution would be that we include the hours that the associates spend in the training into the budget table, and then we reach, then it's clear, and the 20% are cut off there. And if we want to have more than 20% on the side of this particular partner, then we have the agreement in the consortium that, we sign together. Okay, understood. Thank you.
I guess we have 3 minutes left. So also we received question about, please can you say more about what the 20% is? It was not included in the presentation. I don't know if still you need more clarification.
maybe we can say just shortly that, well, co-funding is that with the call, we want you to have this part of responsibility, financial responsibility of 20%. It means if you ask with your project 3 million euros, we say, well, it's in total that you estimate that to put your project in place, it will cost you 3 million euros. But the European Commission say, okay, we give you 80% and you add from your side 20%. So that is what co-funding means in this call.
Mm-hmm. And I
And you
guess
don't
we
need
have...
to, sorry, just to add, you don't need to justify the source of it. We won't ask how you will split it. So it's really up to you. It's your own co-funding and you deal it as you wish with it. Okay.
Okay, and it's again about co-financing question. It is only fixed in cooperation agreement how to handle this, because lump sum is of each partner is lowered in budget table how to handle. So as Dovilė explained, in detailed budget is fixed structure and we cannot change it, but all agreement for co-financing for two project who can co-fund, it's only agreed in consortium agreement. And I guess we can answer the last question before going to coffee break. It's about average salary. Can we consider the department average salary is based for personal cost, or do we really need to consider salaries of named persons? Dovilė, can you answer?
Yes, I can answer. Well, you could consider the department average salary as base for personal cost, unless there are 5 managers and 2 subordinates, and on your project there will be only, I don't know, a subordinate that will work. So actually, your costs should be justified and realistic. So if you know that there will be a financial officer and a research colleague who will be working on the project, so let's take just their 2 salaries and make an average instead of taking the whole department's average, because it will be more realistic and, yes, close to the truth.
And I guess one last question, it's more technical question as it was written. It's the entity registration number as listed in registration documents the same as the PIC? So no, it's not the same. PIC is a number given from European Commission platform. And how to sign manually digital, what exactly needs to be signed? I need a bit more. You can sign both ways, and digitally and manually, and all documents. I mean, declaration of owner. I guess that's all. Declaration of owner we need with application form, and other documents you can sign as you can.
I believe it's also the professional competence
Oh, yes, that's
that
right.
should be signed as well. Yes.
So I guess for now we can have a short coffee break for 10 minutes, and we will come back at 11 a.m.
Yes. Yeah.
Welcome back. We hope you are well and well rested and ready to explore the clarities of the call and to have answers to your questions. So now we can turn to our final presenter, Karolina Narkevich. She is also project coordinator at the European Competence Center of Social Innovation, and she will present the most frequently asked questions. So, Karolina, the floor is yours.
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Renata. So, as Renata has mentioned, I will, in the next 20 minutes, I will lead you through the frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. I will cover around 10 questions in 3 topics: eligibility, eligible participants, project budget, and operational capacity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the first question is, should the target group be limited strictly to workers from the automotive sector and its related supply chains? Or may the project also include workers from other industrial sectors undergoing restructuring or affected by automation, digitalization, or the green transition? Next slide, please. So according to the call conditions, eligibility is strictly confined to workers from the automotive sector and its related supply chains. These supply chains are understood broadly, covering upstream and downstream activities such as raw materials, components, logistics, aftermarket services, or recycling, provided that it is direct link to the automotive sector. Please note that workers from other industrial sectors undergoing restructuring, automation, or green transition cannot be included if they do not have a direct automotive connection. Applicants should therefore ensure that the target group definition clearly demonstrates this link and do not extend beyond the scope of this call. Next slide, please. The second question, are there specific NACE codes that define the automotive sector and its related supply chains? And how should a direct connection to the automotive sector be demonstrated? Next slide, please. So there is no mandatory list of NACE codes. Applicants must demonstrate a direct and genuine link between the target group and the automotive sector and its related supply chains, as I mentioned before. Core automotive NACE codes are provided for guidance. You can see them in this slide, but upstream and downstream activities may also be eligible if the link is clearly justified. Where companies operate across sectors, only workers directly involved in automotive-related activities can be included. Next slide, please. So can the project support workers in related supply chains, companies outside the automotive sector, or internal mobility within the same company? What documentation is needed to demonstrate eligibility? Next slide, please. So this question deals with a key eligibility issue. Who can be supported in the project and under what conditions? So all these 3 situations reflect the principle that eligibility is always assessed based on the worker's activities and the nature of transition, rather than on the company's name or main sector alone. So in this situation, when we talk about the related supply chains, this clarifies that workers from related supply sectors can be included if the company supplies directly into the automotive industry and if the training supports the transition to new jobs in strategic sectors. Simply retraining for internal technological change is not sufficient. Activities must prepare workers for employment outside the core automotive value chain. So next slide, please. So the next aspect of this question is about companies outside the automotive sector. So workers in transition should be employed in sectors aligned with the European Competitiveness Fund for Windows. As it is described, the first one is clean transition and industrial decarbonization. The second, health, biotech, agriculture, and bioeconomy. The third, digital leadership. And the fourth, resilience, security, defense industry, and space. So a company whose main activity is outside the target sector, for example, construction, may still be eligible if employment of beneficiaries is exclusively in activities within an eligible sector. As an example, we can say, for example, waste management could be considered under the clean transition window, but a strong justification is required to demonstrate that the job contributes directly to the green transition or other strategic objectives rather than representing general waste management. So the eligibility in that case should be evidenced primarily at the job level through detailed job description and task assignments showing alignment with one of 4 windows. Supporting documents such as company registration documents, organizational charts, and project description should show that the company's activities are strategically oriented toward the green transition. The employer's main NACE code alone is not sufficient. So next slide, please. When we talk about the internal mobility within the same company, generally, this skill guarantee call does not support reskilling that is limited to internal mobility or upskilling within the same sector, where workers remain employed by the same company and continue to perform activities linked to automotive value chain. This is important. However, an exception may apply in cases where the company itself is undergoing a genuine sectoral transition to a strategic sector. For example, from the automotive sector to a strategic and growing sector such as defense. So if the employer can clearly demonstrate through credible evidence, for example, formal strategic documents, decisions, restructuring plans, investment programs, or can document a change in the core business activities, that its automotive operations are being significantly reduced or replaced by activities in another sector, then the affected workers may be considered as transitioning out of the automotive sector, even if they remain employed by the same company. In such cases, reskilling and occupational training may be eligible, provided that first, the training is necessary to acquire new skills required for work in the new sector, for example, in defense. Second, the transition represents a real and substantive sectoral change and do not merely internal upskilling within the automotive sector. And third, the risk of unemployment is clearly demonstrated. So eligibility in these situations is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So please make sure to provide solid documentation to support the relevance of the roles and activities you include. The next slide, please. So the question is, who is eligible as a participant, and can employees in notice periods, unemployed individuals, short-term unemployed, or other target groups be included? Next slide, please. So this call targets currently employed workers only. Employees in notice periods are considered at risk and can be included if justified with credible evidence such as sector analysis or redundancy notices. However, unemployed individuals, recent or long-term, are not eligible. even if they previously worked in the automotive sector. The key is that participants must be active employees in the relevant sectors while presenting this, implementing the project. Next slide, please. So the question is, how do you define a public authority, and can universities be considered as such? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. To answer this question, can you move back, please? To answer the question about the public authorities and universities, I want to point out for you to check the call conditions where you can find a formal definition of the public authority. In short, for the needs of this call, it means any governmental or administrative body that exercise legislative, regulative, or executive powers or implements public policies. So public universities and other educational institutions excluded as a public authorities, but they can still participate as training providers or consortium partners. Evaluators will assess eligibility on the case-by-case basis, as I mentioned before. So looking in this case, looking at legal mandate and actual functions, not just the institution name. So examples of eligible public authorities include ministries, regional bodies, public employment services, SF plus managing authorities, or other bodies. Next slide, please. How should national, regional, and local transition strategies be submitted? Next slide, please. So when presenting the project application, applicants need to show that their activities align with national, regional, or local transition priorities. These does not mean translating entire strategy documents, just provide a concise summary in English, highlighting the parts relevant to the project. Where useful, we advise include translated extracts to clarify the connection. And very important also that please always provide links to the original language documents so the reviewers can easily verify the sources. And so this approach shows that project is grounded in local and national strategic policies, priorities, without creating unnecessary translation work. Next slide, please. Now I will move through a few questions in the budget topic. So the first one is there a maximum allocation for subsidized employment? Next slide, please. So no maximum, there is no fixed maximum for C.1 subsidized employment, but all costs must be reasonable, necessary, and proportionate to budget activities, including salaries, taxes, and statutory contributions. Justification should be included in the budget comments or a separate supporting document. Each worker's employment must be reported in person month as full-time equivalents. And for the detailed guidance, please refer to the call conditions and detailed budget table instructions, where you can find detailed information about that. Next slide, please. Must companies providing employment for the 6-month period be members of the consortium? Next slide, please. So the short answer is yes. All companies providing employment for the 6-month period must be part of the consortium. But there are two options. So the first one, if they already known, if you know them on the project preparation phase, include them at the application stage. If not, allocate budget under the coordinator's work package and add them as beneficiaries during implementation. It will be done, it can be done later on through an amendment. Remuneration costs must match their commitments and be reported in person months as I explained it earlier. And of course, supporting evidence like employment contracts is mandatory. And also, as this is important part for you, please check the call conditions section 2.5 for detailed explanation. Next slide, please. Now a question about the operational capacity. So to assess the operational capacity of the coordinator, Annex 5, list of previous projects must be submitted. Could you elaborate on the requirements for suitable projects, specifically which projects should be presented to substantiate operational capacity? Next slide, please. So first, to answer these question, two important disclaimers. Only the operational capacity of the coordinator is assessed, and this check does not apply if the coordinator is a public body. And the coordinator must have sufficient experience in project management and coordination. And we consider the coordinator to have sufficient experience if you meet all the criteria listed under point A or point B in the call conditions. And the difference between point A and point B is quite simple. Point A looks at the legal entity's experience in managing projects. Point B looks at the experience of the lead project manager who will work on the project. In both cases, either the coordinator as an organization or the lead project manager must have implemented at least one consortium project that meets 5 specific requirements. Next slide, please. So what are these 5 requirements? You can see them in the slide and of course in the call condition. So the project must have been managed by the coordinator or the lead project manager, meaning you were responsible for managing the project, not just participating as a partner. The second is that the project must have involved beneficiaries from at least 2 different countries, and the project must have lasted at least 12 months. Fourth, the total project budget must have been more than 200,000 euros. And the last one, the project must have been implemented and completed between 2021 and 2025. Next slide, please. So here you can see the same requirements, but when you look through the lead project manager perspective. So the project you use to demonstrate operational capacity must be fully finished before you submit your application. So it is very important that you provide evidence that allows us to clearly verify all 5 the aspects. Next slide, please. So here you can see the list of the documents you need to submit to prove that you as a coordinator have sufficient operational capacities. Some of them is very important to submit Annex 5, the list of previous projects. And one thing I want to stress that it is enough to present one project as long as that project meets all 5 operational capacity criteria. So the key point is that evidence must allow us to check that you or the project manager coordinated the project, that it involved partners from at least 2 countries, it lasted at least 12 months, the total budget exceeded 200,000, and that it was completed between 2021 and 2025. So if you choose to demonstrate experience through the lead project manager, please remember that this person must show that they were the lead project manager on the side of the coordinator and not a partner organization. This distinction is essential for the assessment. So next slide, please. So that was the list of the main frequently asked questions, but let's wrap up this section with 3 practical points to keep in mind. First, please check the frequently asked questions part in our website regularly for updates. We continuously update on the website, so it's important for you to have the newest guidance. The second, provide supporting documents to strengthen your relevance score. So make sure all evidence clearly shows alignment with the call's objectives, priorities, and target group. And the third one, submit early in as to avoid technical issues. We encourage you strongly starting ahead of the deadline because this reduces the risk of last-minute problems with the system. So finally, to remember these points, just keep in mind that three words: prepare, support, and submit early. So this is a simple way to stay on a track. Thank you for your attention and good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Carolina, for your presentation. And I see we are quite on time. All questions in the chat box are answered. Maybe we have more questions than we can answer right now because the final our question answer slot. Please feel free to share any remaining questions in the chat. And as I said, we'll answer them after this event. We will post them in a frequently asked questions. So it's the last time to ask questions. No raised hands. Okay. If not, so thank you all for your active participation, thoughtful question, and strong engagement of today's session. And I would also like to, I would also like to thank you, speakers, technical support team, for the excellent contributions. And if you require any further clarification, please do not hesitate to contact us during dedicated email to this call. But before we leave, we kindly ask you to complete the evaluation form. The link is available in the chat. Your feedback will help us further improve future sessions, and we look forward to continue our cooperation with you, not maybe all, but most of you, and to supporting you in preparing strong and impactful applications. So I wish you a very pleasant day ahead, and thank you once again for joining us.